Welcome back to the Taiwanology podcast. This is your host, Kwangyin from Taiwan's CommonWealth Magazine. Today, we're diving into something that's both constant and evolving and also increasingly urgent, which is Taiwan's defense. For those of you who live in Taiwan, you would have experienced something very special last week. While we're recording this week, the Han Kuang military drills are underway. And they're not just bigger this year, they're also more serious and diverse. For the first time, we have something called the Whole of Society Defense Resilience Drill, which is a mouthful, 全社会韧性防卫演习. And PX Mart, a major supermarket chain in Taiwan, is for the first time part of this plan. They are helping with evacuation and shelter. Since a few years ago, there's been more talk of asymmetric warfare, civil defense, and even psychological preparedness for Taiwanese society. All of this comes as China keeps up near daily military pressure. A recent data visualization story by CommonWealth Magazine's graphic team shows exactly how much that pressure has grown in both the sea and the air, which we will be addressing later today. So my question is, why is all this happening now and where is it heading? To help us understand this issue, we're joined by the perfect guest, Silva Shih. She is the defense reporter at CommonWealth Magazine who has been covering China, including defense in Taiwan, and she is the perfect person to talk about this. Welcome to the studio, Silva.
Thank you for having me again, and I'm glad to be back.
Okay, good. Welcome. We're so glad to have you back. And while we're recording this week, we know that you have been so busy going around Taipei to see the military drills. How do you feel right now?
I feel tired. You can imagine that Taiwan is in the summertime, so it's hot and humid, and we have to running around with those drills. So it's kind of tired, but It's interesting.
Right. Do you have to witness the drills in the middle of the night?
We did a couple of days. Yes, it happens around 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. So it's pretty overwhelming experience for me at the same time.
Right. Okay. I definitely don't envy your job, especially this week, but we're lucky to have you here. So, well, first of all, we're talking about Taiwan's defense. And can you tell us why, I don't know if it's just me, but it feels like for international observers of Taiwan, it seems like Taiwan's defense conversation feels even more urgent this year. So why would I say this? Because we have seen a lot of domestic discussion about upping Taiwan's resilience, and also in Shangri-La dialogue that took place a few months ago in Singapore, there was a lot of talk surrounding cross-strait relations and possible scenarios of conflict. Even in NATO, a few weeks ago, we saw that the Secretary General of NATO, Mark Rutte, even he mentioned that he's been paying close attention to Indo-Pacific security and possible conflict scenario cross-strait. So why do you think there are more and more people talking about Taiwan's defense these days?
I think there are two folds. So if we look into a geopolitical spectrum, like you mentioned, I went to Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore in June. So everyone is talking about the potential conflicts between China and Taiwan, but not indirectly. So the reason why behind that, because if you see PLA's activities around Taiwan and also the First Island chain, it's very clear that their movement, their activity is expanding. So they are not only very actively around the First Island chain and even approaching the Second Island chain. So that's the first one that people feel like the pattern is changed. And that's for the first.
It's escalating. So for those who are not experts in defense, PLA is China's
People's
Liberation Army,
right?
解放军. So PLA is short for China's army. And First Island Chain and Second Island Chain, could you please briefly explain those terms?
So the first island chain, second island chain is divided like during the World War II. So that means the first island chain is a line between like Taiwan, Korea, and Japan. So it's
the Philippines also?
Yeah, the Philippines also. So it's the first island that close to China, and the second island is where the Guam, the U.S. Army base, is there. So there are two lines in the West Pacific Ocean.
I see. So lines of defense. So what you're saying is people have witnessed both Taiwanese and global. They have seen even more activities from the PLA approaching first island chain and second island chain. And why do you think that is?
They are expanding because the first obvious reason is they are growing. China is a big country right now, so it's very natural for them to grow their military power. But the second part is they feel like they try to protect their safety zone because they feel like the West Pacific is still under the U.S. umbrella. They hope they can break through the first island chain or second island chain to expand their comfort zone. So that's the first reason.
So as China grows as a country, it needs more and more space to feel comfortable, right? It's almost like a bully in a class.
Yes and no. And yes, probably we can safely to say that is kind of like a bully. But back to your question about why people feel more urgent about Taiwan's security issue, I think it's also related to the U.S. movement as well, because you can see that the Trump new administration has highly emphasized that its allies, especially like Japan and Australia and Taiwan as well, we have to expand our defense budget. So according to Hexas, who is the minister of the MOD, Minister of Defense in the United States, he actually mentioned that he hoped Taiwan can raise our defense spending to 10% of GDP, which right now, in fact, we only have 3% of the GDP.
Okay.
So it's pretty like a big room for Taiwan to grow. So I think under this kind of like defense budget pressure, people will start to talk about the urgency that why we have to. And if we look into the reality, not only because of the pressure from China, but I think the US also play an important like role to change the dynamic in the cross straits.
I see. Yeah. So we have to, in other words, triple our defense budget to meet that target. Right. And we mentioned the activities of the Chinese army, the PLA, and which brings me to something that your team has achieved this couple of months. I feel that this is very impressive, this graphic story of data visualization documenting PLA's activities. There's a dashboard that has documented for the past 3 years, every day, PLA's activities at air and sea. Could you tell us more about it? Why did you make this dashboard?
Thank you so much for Kwangyin to bring up this project.
Yeah.
So I pay attention to PLA's, 解放军's activities for years, but I feel like we lack of like consistency, like data trend or consistency, like whole picture about what's going on around Taiwan. And not only Taiwan, but what about the first island chain? So my team and I produced this dashboard. We are not collect the official data from Taiwan, but we also collect the data from Japan. So we combine Japan's and Taiwan's data and to document like PLA activities around the first island chain. So we can see patterns has changed. I can name a few. Like
yeah, please.
Yes.
What patterns do you see?
So PLA used to be like spiked. Their activities usually will be spiked during major political moments. For example, like Pelosi visits in Taiwan in 2022. But now it's clear that their activity is very routine and continuously. So regardless those political moments, they just fly around Taiwan
All the time?
All the time and every day. And that's the first pattern we've noticed.
Right. Mm-hmm. So what we perceived as peak before, now is becoming the norm.
Yeah, that's the norm. And the other thing is about the median line. So the median line of the Taiwan Strait, which serve as a like unofficial border between two sides.
Right. And that median line is roughly between Jingmen Island and
no,
where
not
is it?
exactly.
Okay.
If you look into it geographically about Taiwan and mainland China, so
Taiwan Strait
is in between. So you just can draw a roughly line
middle
between
line.
middle line.
Okay, middle line. That's dividing Taiwan Strait into two parts, roughly.
Right, roughly. So in the past, that no one will pass that line intentionally.
Okay.
But right now, that we can see that PLA's aircrafts just pass the median line every day,
as if it doesn't exist anymore.
So the unofficial border is not exist anymore.
Okay.
So that's the second pattern.
Interesting.
Yeah, we've noticed. And the other thing is, if you look into the type of aircraft and vessels around Taiwan or deployed around Taiwan and First Island chain, we've seen more and more like unmanned aviation vehicle, UAV, which means drones, appear more and more frequently.
Right. Since around when?
Around last year, around last December. But I mean, we catch up this trend earlier, like almost like 2 years ago, but it become more frequently or more routine is from this year.
UAVs. Okay. Right. But 2 years ago, you haven't observed such occurrences.
It's just like one or two per month or per quarter, but not that continuously.
What's the frequency now? Every day?
Every day. You can see just like 2 days before we are recording this episode, we've seen there's like at least one or two drones fly around Taiwan. So that's something new for us to pay attention to.
What do you think the mission is for these UAVs, these drones?
So it depends on what kind of or what types of the drones they are sending to. Unfortunately, our Minister of National Defense didn't disclose their types anymore. But from what we've heard is they are serving as like surveillance.
Yeah.
So that's the main point.
Right. So these patterns and these activities, information we could all keep track of from this PLA dashboard that you have produced.
So if you Google PLA activities around Taiwan and Commonwealth, you will pop up on your Google search result that there's a dashboard to track all the patterns, all the types of the aircrafts and vessels, and also to see how their movement around Taiwan and Japan as well.
Right. I think this is very invaluable information for those Taiwan observers out there. So I encourage you to check this out. And we will also include the link in the show notes. Right. And apart from this, we also noticed that there seems to be growing public interest in defense-related activities in Taiwan and abroad. What's your observation of that?
Do you think we do have that growing interest in? Because I cover defense, I always feel like we lack of discussion about that. But glad to hear that. Yeah. So for internationally, I think, yes, people are more pay attention to Taiwan's defense issue or say security issue. If you look into like the number of the foreign press based in Taiwan, the number is growing, obviously, and they are all focused on the security issue on Taiwan. And for the public interest, I think that recently there's a news, I'm not sure if everyone's following, is people try to buy more survival kit in the shop, survival kit or say emergency kit. So everyone's wondering about if the situation is getting worse, do they need any survival like pack or kit in their home in case for like contingency happen? Yes.
Yeah. So there's, I think, more awareness, and it's, I guess, part of the whole of society resilience initiative that the government has been promoting, right? So I think there's definitely more awareness. And I would like to talk more about the drills that happened while recording this week, but when you're listening to this, it's could be a few weeks ago. And we have seen a lot of action in the military drills, which are referred to as the Han Kuang drills. and also this whole of society drill. So we're going to take a short break here, and when we come back, we're going to talk about everything that happened in these drills and Silva's observation. Welcome back to the Taiwanology podcast. This is your host, Liu Guangying. With us today is Silva Shih, CommonWealth Magazine's defense reporter, who has spent many sleepless nights this week covering the drills that's happening around the island and also around Taipei City. Silva, could you share with us a few interesting or key moments of these drills that you have witnessed around Taipei City?
Oh, there are so many key or critical moments I've seen, but I will name a few. I remember on Monday, while we were recording the week of Monday, for the first thing, the drill this year is on script. But somehow they will still notify the press together at some point or someplace.
Okay. So what, unscripted? Everything is unscripted?
It should be, because they try to test the army if they can act spontaneously.
Right.
So that's the goal. But somehow they still have some press to be on the ground to cover the story.
We need a footage, of course.
Yeah. So they will let us know some secret point and to gather around and to see. And this year, I found that's very interesting. A lot of the spot they sent to us is in the city, not at the sea band or the coast, but in the very downtown of Taipei.
Okay. So, for example, can you disclose a few of the locations where actions took place?
For example, we've sent to the MRT station, which is in the middle of the night. The scenario is the army with the guns will try to deter the other side. Mm-hmm. So they will gather around underground and at the MRT station, which is the largest transportation in Taipei City. And that's for one. The other scenario is they set up a possible the other side will walk through the bridge between the new Taipei City and the Taipei City. So we've seen tank is riding on the road.
You saw tanks?
Yes.
How many?
At that night, at least one, and that one is very expensive and very large and very important to Taiwan security. So you can see tank is on the bridge in downtown and trying to deter the enemies. So that's something new for me.
Wow. Okay. Did we succeed? I hope we did.
It's very hard to tell whether it succeeds or not, because from what I've saw, we succeed, but we are not sure if that really happens in reality.
Right. And from the news coverage that I have seen, there are a lot of people talking about Americans in plain clothes watching. What can you tell us about that?
That's something new this year as well. So people are jokingly talk about those American military personnel as English teacher. Mm-hmm. So people will say, oh, we've ran into a lot of English teachers on the MRT or in the city this week. So because of the sensitivity about this issue, about the security cooperation between Taiwan and the U.S., so those so-called the U.S. military personnel are not allowed to wear uniform in public. So normally they will wear just everyday clothes, but they will stand by the drill, or they will just watch with distance and to see how our military are working. So that's something new this year. We do have a lot of English teachers watching on the side.
Right. So are they giving instructions? Are they taking notes?
They definitely taking notes, and they definitely will give us some instruction. That's for sure.
Right. Are they allowed to talk to the press?
We hope to approaching them, but somehow they are not allowed to talk to anything in public.
I see. So this is also a first, right, in our annual drills?
I would say that's the first to see so many American English teachers watching by side, but it's not the first time they join the drill or say they watch by the side. I think the quantity, the number is something new to first.
And it looks like it's also more visible now.
Right.
And I suppose this is going to also be a norm going forward. Okay, and something else other than the English teachers, something else that I observed in the reporting of this drill is the participation of PX Mart, which is a major supermarket chain. And I could see that people were practicing hiding and sheltering. Why is this supermarket chain part of this drill this year?
At first, I thought that because PX Smart, like Kwangyin just mentioned, is the largest local supermarket chain. So I assumed that they will practice something about logistic in contingency. But somehow I realized it's not only about the logistic because PX Smart has a lot of like shoulder underground.
They have basements.
They have basement for foods, for like storage. So the government trying to use that space, use the shelter to play as a shelter. So that's something new. And this is the first time to see a private enterprise to join a military drill in Taiwan.
Yeah, I find it pretty rare, actually. And also, I heard that the owner of PX Mart, he volunteered to be part of this whole of society resilience committee. So is this going to become a trend that private companies will increasingly be encouraged or co-opted into these civil defense initiatives?
I would say it could be a trend, but the form, the way how they collaborate with the government will be depending on the future policy. But I would say regardless of the policy or the government movement, every like private enterprise, as far as I know, are getting more aware of the contingency plan. And some of the companies based in Taiwan are trying to make contingency plan on their own. So I think that's exactly is the trend for Taiwan right now. But the other thing is, it's still very rare for us, for the private company to work with government, especially on those so-called security issue. So I think there's still a lot of time for them to negotiate and to learn how to cooperate with each other. There's something new for Taiwan.
Right. Yeah. So I think we're all adapting to see what will be going on in the future. Right. And a pretty uneasy question, but we have to ask, where is Taiwan most vulnerable? I remember there have been times when international think tank researchers who came to Taiwan would have coffee with us, and they were all worried about scenarios involving blockades and gray zone activities or outright conflicts. What do you think are the scenarios that Taiwan should be preparing for?
So depending on what kind of like scenario that China will invade Taiwan, I'm sorry, I have to use the word invade. That's the worst scenario we don't want to have. So the first scenario is blockade, like you mentioned, and also quarantine. The difference between blockade and quarantine is whether the PLA or China using the military power to join the exercise. So blockade belongs to the military exercise. Quarantine, that means that China will use like police or non-military force to join the exercise. So that's the difference. But the other new situation is probably the PLA has capability to landing in Taiwan. So that's something new that we have definitely need to be prepared. So that means we have to think about not only the blockade and quarantine situation, but we also have to think about what if they invade Taiwan? How should we prepare for ourselves? That's why we see a lot of like whole of society resilient movement in Taiwan recently, because the scenario is, what if the battlefield is in the city, in the county? We definitely need to prepare everyone. It's not only the Minister of Defense job, it's everyone's job. But back to the blockade and quarantine this scenario. Like you described, and Kwangyin, you are also the energy reporter. So you must know that everyone is so concerned about Taiwan's energy issue. If we got blockade by PLA, by China, that means we have to sustain our energy supplies for at least 8 to 20 days.
Which is going to be a problem.
Are we capable of that? And not only about energy and also about like water and food, and could people sustain within that at least 2 weeks? I mean, that's still a puzzle for us.
Right. All of this is making me very uncomfortable right now. And I'm sure people who are listening could also feel that this is very dire pictures you are painting here. And also I have to bring up this question that we have been asked a lot, which is international observers, so those from the US or Europe, even Japan, they would be very worried about contingency situation around Taiwan. And they would be wondering if Taiwanese people feel the same urgency, because when they come here, they're like, oh, people don't seem to be worried enough, and people don't seem to be preparing. Do you agree that there's this divide, or do you see any change in people's attitude?
I would say people's attitude has evolving. So the thing is, why a lot of like foreign observer will always criticize, I will use the word criticize Taiwan for not prepared enough or to relax. I will say that we have lived like this situation. I mean, the situation is China put a lot of like missile against Taiwan for almost like 40 years. We are living under the missile target.
Yeah.
So it's not realistic for Taiwan or for Taiwanese to stay alert almost every day. I mean, that's unrealistic. But right now, Taiwanese has something changed. I feel like it's not only about the international attention, because people realize that be prepared could also be a way to deter China. So I think the attitude has changed, especially this year or from the last quarter of 2024. So I think the dynamic has changed in society.
Right.
But people should pay attention to Taiwan closely. We are responsible for our security. We are not those irresponsible people. So don't criticize us again on our readiness. I think things has changed recently.
Yeah, we are changing. So I think one difference is the whole society committee and the participation of PIXMAR. All of this points to a wider net of participation and awareness in the society, I think. So, okay, one last question. So going forward this year, what kind of development would you be watching closely in defense?
This is really a hard question. If I may, I want to name at least like 10 things. But if I only got one thing to highlight, I would definitely say I would pay attention to the U.S. presence in the Indo-Pacific. That not only related to Taiwan, but related to Japan and Australia. And the other thing is about whether the U.S. and China, like Xi Jinping or President Trump, will meet, and what about they are talking about Indo-Pacific. And I think that's so important for Taiwan's future. And that will influence Taiwan domestic politics as well, because party will definitely use this as a tool to fight with each other. So I'll definitely pay attention to this specific trend and development.
Well, I have to thank Silva for coming in today. This is, I have to admit, a very difficult topic for all of us, I think, but we cannot afford not to think about it. And from our conversation and what's going on around Taiwan and Taipei City this week, I could already see there are more people than ever who are aware of the risks. And I think more people, and including companies, are making contingency plans, and more preparation, more preparedness can never be wrong. I think that's the takeaway that I have from today's conversation. So Silva, thank you so much.
Thank you for having this difficult conversation with me.
Right. And I'm sure there are more difficult conversations going forward where you will be involved. So if you enjoyed the show, thank you for listening. Leave us a review or drop us an email. We'd love to hear from you, your thoughts. To check out this data visualization story of PLA's activity, the dashboard, please visit the Commonwealth English website. The link is in the show notes. The next episode will be available August 26th. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts and stay tuned for more conversations about Taiwan. Thanks for listening and see you next time.